Good afternoon to all. On behalf of Indian Banks Association, myself Srinivas Rao, Senior Advisor here, handling payment systems. We welcome all the participants, representatives from the member banks to the webinar. I also welcome panelists to the webinar. The webinar is on identity and access management. The webinar is for 1 hour. First 30 minutes on the technology will be explained by the panelists, and remaining 30 minutes for the question answers. The questions, if any, if you want to ask, you put in the chat box. It will be answered by the panel speakers. They will try to answer all the questions. In case if anything remains, that we will collect the answers and we will send it to all the participants. And we will also share the presentation and along with question answers. I welcome Mr. Vinod Singh, Founder, President and CEO, Cross Identity. He will take us through the webinar. He will be assisted by Mr. Shankar VK, Chief Customer Officer, Abhishek Prasad, Chief Success Officer, Pramod B, Chief Technology Officer, and Vivekananda Sahu, Chief Business Officer. Over to Vinod Singh ji and his team.
Thank you so much. Welcome to all of you in this 1 hour webinar. And as we were told, the first 30 minutes I'm going to be talking about the context of the webinar today. And then the next 30 minutes, we will try to take as many questions as possible. In my more than 25 years of experience with identity and access management with banks worldwide, there are a few things that I have learned. I think somebody has to go on mute. And one of them is that compliance is a moving target. It never gets done. We have the regulatory authorities which are looking for the banks to comply with certain stipulations, and they keep on changing. Every year brings in a new set of compliances or deeper compliances. And to that extent, one thing that is important that I have learned working with banks is that you should not be looking at compliance as this year's target. And from that point of view, various technologies that you deploy got to be looked upon from a very long-term investment perspective, not only for what is required today. Otherwise, as I have seen, there's going to be a lot more struggle and all the time struggle in trying to meet the compliance requirements every year. So with that note, let me very quickly take you through the agenda. We today would be talking about just refreshing in your minds the RBI cybersecurity regulations. All of you are experts in this, and I don't have to tell you, but I would just remind you of a few things over here. And then I will quickly move on to talk about the understanding of identity and access management. Why it is important is because there's been a sea of change in the way identity and access management is seen today and is constituted today as compared to what it was just a few years ago. So a bit of a refresher there would be important. We would also very quickly touch upon identity first security, which is fast becoming the most important and way to make cybersecurity effective. We'll then jump into some of the latest trends in the identity and access management space. And indeed, the most significant of those is what we call converged IAM. We'll see what it is. We will also see some of the technologies, simple things like SSO, or what is called access management, and IGA of today, and PAM of today. These are the essential components of IAM, as you know. But what do they really mean in today's context? We'll see that. We'll jump in from there to talk about the identity and access management and RBI compliance, which is the topic of today. But without the background of what I said just now, we would not be doing justice to the subject. We'll also quickly take a look at the role of independent research in identity and access management, because this is a very dynamic technology, and if you are not fully taking benefit of the research that's being done in this space, you would not perhaps be hitting the bull's target in the technology. We have also added today an interesting portion to it, which is the rise of Indian identity and access management providers. And why should you be seriously looking at the Indian IAM vendors as well? We would then end the whole thing with the key attributes of an ideal IAM vendor, because we know, I keep on talking to a large number of banks, and we do know that most of you are looking for a variety of technologies for better compliance, and identity and access management is one of the top technologies in over there. So we will talk about that portion, and then we will summarize. So with that, let me move on to the refreshing of the RBI cybersecurity regulations itself. So as we all know, there are a lot of earlier regulations and smaller pieces were replaced by RBI with two major documents. The first one is the outsourcing of information technology service directions, and the second one is the master directions on IT governance. Both of them, by this time, are supposed to be complied with. However, in my conversations with banks, what we find is that most of the organizations, most of the banks have not yet fully complied, and compliance is not that easy, by the way. And in our conversations with members of RBI and other regulatory authorities, we can see that they also do not expect 100% compliance on day one. What they want to see is that you're moving in the right direction and that there are enough proof points that you're making enough progress. And that's where they are also looking for not short-term measures to be taken, but long-term investments to be made by banks in this area. As you know, the first of these regulations or the documents is more on the outsourcing, but it is very much very important from the point of view of compliance, because every single bank has got so much of outsourcing that gets done. This business itself is not possible to be run without outsourcing. But then, including areas like the outsourcing of the infrastructure, which is moving into cloud, which RBI, as we all know, was not very comfortable with at some point in time. But as long as the right measures are taken, they are very comfortable. In fact, sometimes we almost hear that they're more comfortable with cloud now as compared to any other time, because the resilience and the scalability of cloud is unquestioned. And given the growth of our the banking sector in India, that becomes a very important area. And of course, the master directions is all about a lot of governance related, IT governance related issues. Having revisited this, I must say that this is one area where IAM, Identity and Access Management, plays a key role. Let's quickly take a look at understand a little bit of insights into Identity and Access Management itself. I know that all of you are aware of IAM, but as I said, I'm going to refresh a few things and maybe drop a few of the latest things that are happening in this space today, which is very critical for you to understand, especially from the point of view of using IAM for the RBI compliance. So the first thing that I would like to talk about is straight from Gartner document. And this is supposed to be one of the most significant documents in the recent years from Gartner, which essentially talks about how do you make cybersecurity more effective. Now, this is a topic which is of immense interest to everybody in the banking sector. We keep on hearing about the cybersecurity breaches. We keep on hearing about the difficulties that it's causing. in spite of more budgets being spent on cybersecurity than ever. In one single sentence, Gartner says that you got to make identity first, which essentially is putting something like identity and access management at the center of your cybersecurity philosophy or strategy. That's the only way to maximize, because every single cybersecurity tool that you use, every single breach that happens, eventually is created from some sort of a compromise on either identity or access. And therefore, that becomes the key to maximizing cybersecurity. While I don't have time to go into the details of that document, I can just talk about some of the key findings. In the first bullet here, Gartner is talking about why things have become so much more difficult at this point in time as compared to any other time when it comes to cybersecurity. So I won't stay there. All of us know that cloud, digital supply chains, remote access, these are some of the key determinants of the cybersecurity becoming so, organizations becoming so vulnerable in this area. The second part is Gartner straightaway jumps into identity and access management policies. Now, all of us in banks do have IAM policies drafted out. Unfortunately, these are a little static in nature. We draft them and then we revise them from time to time. Gartner says that age is gone. You cannot do that anymore. Your IAM policies have to be context aware so that they automatically take the shape that is required to be taken given a particular context and situation. So it has to be very dynamic in nature. Again, that calls for IAM to be implemented. The third important point, and this is very significant for the banks in particular, as I meet, and over the last just about 8-9 months, I would have had meetings with at least 150 senior people in the banking community. And almost 95% of them, if I ask a question as to what is your focus in cybersecurity today, without doubt, it comes out as compliance and RBI compliance. But Gartner warns that your checkbox compliance is not equal to security. This is an important point to note because compliance is for a particular moment. When you go through a compliance, what it means is that in past you have been secure, or in the present you're secure. But it doesn't mean that the next day or 10 days later you are going to be compliant, because everything is changing so rapidly that once again you may be, if the regulatory authority does a compliance check, just about 1 month later, they will find you out of compliance in so many ways. And that therefore cannot be done through checkbox methodology. It has to be done by putting a solid security basics in place. Moving on to talking about some of the latest things happening in converged in the IAM space. So by far, without any doubt, converged IAM is the most talked about topic in the IAM technology today. In fact, Gartner says that 70% of new technology deployments in all organizations across the world by the end of 2025 is going to be of the converged type. Let's look at what this converged IAM is all about. So as we know, identity and access management essentially comprises of 3 major technologies. The first one is called identity governance and administration, which essentially takes care of the life cycle management of all the users, whether they happen to be from the inside the organization or their contractors or some other outsourcing vendors, partners included. The governance part is very critical in IGA for compliance. and things such as access certification, orphan account management, policy and role management, all these things come under that. The second part of the technology is access management, which is very, very critical because things like authentication, single sign-on, also access, the API access control and so on, get control from the access management side. And finally, when it comes to the privileged users, and privileged users today can be the traditional privileged users who look after the infrastructure for the on-prem infrastructure, or they could be the DevOps users who take care of your cloud infrastructure. Incidentally, the people or the users who have got very critical business entitlements, they also are increasingly falling under the definition of privileged users. So privileged access management essentially takes care of all that. Unfortunately, these three technologies have remained in silos since they developed at different points in time in IAM domain. And there are different vendors who specialize in these. That does not work anymore, unfortunately, because in today's world, IAM needs to be delivered as one single technology, which is interoperable, where signals coming from one area could be used in the other to rectify something or instantly taking some remedial actions and so on. And so based on that, Gartner about 20 months ago came out with a new architecture, what they call converged IAM. And this calls for, according to Gartner, there's a minimum requirement for that. So the orange box that you see out here, inside that, every single thing that is there should be there in a product for it to be converged IAM. When it comes to banking, that is not sufficient. We need to extend this to a much, much larger set of functionality. And almost everything that you see out here in the three boxes should be covered in a convergence philosophy or technology or architecture when it comes to the requirement for the banks. Since we are on Gartner and talking about convergence, these are the four players that are recognized by Gartner as the true converged IAM platforms. Cross-identity is the new name for Atlantis, and then there are two other vendors, Bamboo Cloud, Paraview, and then Sophit. These are the four vendors that are recognized as converged IAM platforms by Gartner. The benefits of a converged IAM platform, Gartner says, are that, first of all, there's much higher productivity because you're going in for a very secure and comprehensive IAM solution. As I said right in the beginning, your today's requirements do not determine your preparedness for tomorrow's compliance requirements and security requirements. And therefore, even though you may not require certain elements today, you need to have a platform which can give you what you need tomorrow without having the major heavy lifting on trying to put new technologies. The second part is that the converged IAM gives you a single dashboard control, whether it is for access management, IGA, or privileged identity and access management, immensely useful in terms of managing things. And it also provides you, as I said, interoperability between the various modules. That's only possible in a converged IAM. So there are obviously benefits because of which Gartner has recommended this. For those who would like to know a little more about the key components of identity and access management, though I know all of you would have a fairly good idea, the access management or SSO, what is usually called, enhances your security at the login time. It takes care of it provides you with much better user experience in logging in, a much stronger authentication, including the latest areas like passwordless authentication. It gives you centralized authorization of identities, which is very, very critical. It reduces the risk of data breaches because of those reasons. And if you look at RBI compliance requirements, there are lots of them. I'll talk about that in a moment, which come from the compliance from the access management area. Privileged access management, I would not talk about. I think all of you must be familiar with the traditional privileged access management, but there are very new developments that have happened in this area, which you must be aware of, because this will be important for the RBI compliance. And some of these, the main change is that, the main change in the technology is that earlier privileged access management was, as the name suggests, only managing the access of the privileged user. Now, what we call PIAM, which is Privileged Identity and Access Management, essentially offers comprehensive life cycle management of the privileged users, not just access management. So you want to do provisioning for a new privileged user, or deprovision him out, or you want to entertain access requests from the privileged user. You need to do access certifications for him, even more important than doing it for regular users. You want to do the context-based authentication for the privileged user. And indeed, everything that you have to do from a governance and compliance perspective for the privileged user is done by the today's PIAM software, which is not possible with the traditional PAM technology that you may be having. IGA, I don't have to talk about. It's a very, very critical area, as we all know. This is the real deep dive of identity and access management. And this is just for some of the areas for compliance, which is recertifications, SOD controls, orphan account management, compliance dashboards and reporting, which is becoming very, very critical. These are things that are required, that are taken care of by identity governance and administration. With that, let me now, with the background that we have on the latest of the identity and access management, let's talk about the RBI regulations. So with very large scale experience that we have in this area, what we have done is something very unique, which is we have taken, in fact, before that, these are some of the master direction document. While they are not really talking about what specific measures have to be taken in IAM, there is fairly large text that is there. Now, the problem that organizations or banks are facing today is that when they actually go for the RBI compliance, this document is not the guidance document. There are a lot of things that the regulators, the RBI is looking for, which are not mentioned in detail here. So because of our experience with this area, we picked up, we looked at the entire landscape of the banking channels, looked at various areas in the user access management controls, and looked at the policies that are important to be implemented. And these are in these 9 areas, which is user identification and accounts, user ID creation and maintenance, and up to teleworking. As you can see, these 9 areas where we believe, based on a lot of experience that we have with large number of banks, that about 73 policies have to be implemented if you want to be compliant with everything that RBI looks forward to in this area. We can discuss about all this in far greater detail. This is not within the purview of such a short thing, but if any one of you would like to do that, please write to us and we would be happy to take you through that. A word on the independent research that's going on in the identity and access management space. Because if you're looking to deploy a long-term solution for identity and access management, apart from getting some understanding from your peers, getting understanding from organizations like ours, you also need to look at the independent research that's available. And I'll just give you a glimpse of that. So why it is important, we all know as analysts, is provide unbiased assessment of the vendors, which helps organizations in making informed decisions. They report and highlight vendors that demonstrate a commitment to regulatory compliance, such as RBI mandate. So from that point of view, it's very, very critical for you to take a look at what is the position of various technologies from independent research perspective. It's also important because they provide valuable insights into market trends, even pricing and vendor differentiation, and so on. When you look at the independent research and analyst, there are a few that really come up. I would single out here at least two, which is Gartner and Kapinger-Cole. Gartner, everybody is familiar with. Kapinger-Cole happens to be the most widely read and followed analyst in the identity and access management industry. Gartner, unfortunately, does not have a magic quadrant for identity governance and administration, which is IGA, but Kapinger-Cole does have a similar thing, and everybody in the world looks at Kapinger-Cole analysis on the identity governance and administration. Just a few days ago, Kapinger-Cole's Leadership Compass was published, I think just last week, and they essentially look at all the technology providers as overall leaders, the challengers, and the followers. If you look at the red dots, these essentially comprise of the leaders. And while somebody may look a little ahead, somebody a little behind, what is important is what works for you. But definitely to take a look at the leaders makes a good point. And in that, as you can see, there is only one Indian vendor, which is Identity Plus, which has made it to the overall leadership category. By the way, if you look at that, there's one more noticeable point that none of the other vendors except Identity Plus has got a converged solution. The rest are traditional solutions. Kapinger-Cole also takes you into more details in terms of product leadership, market leadership, and innovation leadership. And these are some of the vendors out there. My last point on this quick webinar is about identity and access management and Make in India. Given the challenges that the local regulators are posing in front of the banks and those institutions which are governed by RBI, it is important to really look at, because if you start looking at it in detail, you'll find that a lot of these regulatory compliance requirements are very specific to a specific geography or business environment. India has got its own peculiarities in terms of the business environment, and therefore the security posture that we need to adopt, and therefore the flavor of IAM is slightly different, and it will continue to become different for the Indian banks and other regulated entities. This is why you should be looking seriously at the Indian IAM vendors also now. They have a deep understanding of the Indian market. They have customized solutions for specific challenges that you have for the compliances. It requires strong customer support, because an area like IAM, unless good support is there, could really cripple you. Data residency becomes important when you go into the area of cloud. Integration with local systems is very, very critical, like the core banking software and all that. And then you also, this could be more cost effective for you. Lastly, as you go around looking for converged IAM, you got to really look at the true converged IAM and the one that is being posed as converged IAM. A true converged IAM product has to have single code base, It has to have instant communication available between different modules. It must offer interoperability of actions between the modules. It must protect the existing investments in the sense that if you've already made investment in a certain area, a true converged IAM product would work with that also. And of course, a true converged IAM for banking should have sufficient exposure and experience and have the use cases satisfied for the true converged for banks. Most of these things are not available in a lot of technologies that are being touted as converged IAM in the marketplace. So this is just a word of caution. As you take a look at the technologies, do take a look at the true and the false converged IAMs. Just to conclude, we went through the RBI regulations. We went into the understanding of identity and access management and its new forms. We looked at the latest developments in identity and access management, which included converged IAM. We also took a look at the other components of converged IAM. And eventually we talked a little about taking a look at the Indian solution providers, as well as the key attributes of an ideal identity and access management vendor. On top of the hour, as far as my presentation is concerned, thank you very much. There are questions, we would be taking them up. Thank you, and over to IBA.
Participant, if any questions are there, please type in the chat box. I think somebody will be answering it from the panel. Already one question came.
Could you read that out, because I can't see it on my chat message.
So Vinod, the question was, how can I get the list of IAM policies which needs to be compliant with RBI?
Sorry, can you repeat that, please? Pramod, could you repeat that?
Yes, Vinod. Are you able to hear me, right?
Yes, I can. Please repeat your question.
How can I get the list of IAM policies which needs to be compliant with RBI?
So, as if you let us have your credentials, we would get in touch with you. As I said, that with years of experience in this area, we have prepared a set of policies that are required for RBI compliance, and we have the details available. We'll be very happy to share it with you and also talk to you about it and how that can be implemented. If you let us know your credentials.
Next question is use of AI in IAM.
So, like any other domain, AI is becoming extremely important now. And there are two areas which seem to be very, very important from the point of view of identity and access management. One is, I would say, the area of the analytics. There is increasingly a role of analytics in identity and access management. And AI can really, as you can understand, provide a lot of help there. Second area I can single out is on the reporting side, because in the RBI audits we have seen, there could be very ad hoc requirements on reports. AI-based reporting tools can really help in terms of giving ad hoc requirements on reporting to be taken care of. And indeed, no vendor can provide you with every single report for RBI compliance because they keep changing, and there could be additional requirements popping up all the time. And so that's another area which can be useful to have AI in. Pramod, if you can think of any other, or Abhishek, you could please talk about that.
Yeah, there are as you mentioned, then like creating these policies, their system itself can learn those policies over a period of time. And
We're losing you, Pramod.
where AI can be used.
We lost you quite a bit in between. You seem to have some problems with your.
I was talking about like creating policies, this IAM policy.
It's okay.
Other
Abhishek,
areas where AI can be used. Okay.
Sure. What's the next question? Abhishek, can you read that? Okay, I can see here. Do you see other Asian regulators following suit? Oh, absolutely. In fact, we are seeing already the emergence of much more stringent compliance requirements in various markets. We are seeing it in most of the ASEAN countries. We are looking at other countries as well. If you look at, go a little outside ASEAN and look at people like Philippines or for that matter, Indonesia, Malaysia. Of course, Singapore has been very strong on compliance. Everywhere it seems to be emerging and getting more stringent. India, I would say, barring Singapore, is ahead of other geographies, but others are catching up too. Well, here, Abhishek, you can help me, but identity fabric is a very interesting topic today. This is one of the biggest and most talked about subjects in identity and access management today. As the name suggests, identity fabric essentially covers the the ability to stitch all the elements of IAM's different kinds of solutions into one fabric so that you can tap it at your will. And this is very important. We as an organization have been focusing a lot on the identity fabric. Abhishek, would you like to say anything on that? Okay, he's not there. So I just saw a question in terms of the vendors, contractors in the same IAM domain. IAM domain can be the same, but the domain of their identities will not be the same. And the more mature products do offer the facility to do the vendor identity and access management also. So that can be handled very effectively. Another question is how to handle legacy applications which do not support protocols like SAML. Very important question. And since you're talking SAML, you obviously are looking at single sign-on. Now, there are a handful of technologies in the world. Certainly, we know that cross-identity is one of those, which has got the possibility of handling legacy applications also. But generally, you don't have that ability available in other single sign-on products. There was one more question before this, which talked about the difference of SSO and the IAM. So SSO is a component of IAM. IAM has got many other components. SSO is just one of them. Can we have flow diagram architecture of working of IAM here for better clarity? Difficult to do that in this session, but if you let us know your details. We would be happy to share that. Does RBI dictate any specific authentication and levels of MFA required? Yes and no. Two-factor authentication is something which is very much being required for certain areas. Almost all the important kind of logins is required, but not. They don't say that. They don't have a comprehensive list of where all you need two-factor authentication. But there are certain areas they have prescribed. Service Edge, SASE framework, and zero trust architecture. So, well, you see, Service Edge, SASE framework, and zero trust architecture is a very large subject again, and IAM has a very, very important role to play there. SASE framework is one more area to be addressed. Technologies are different, but IAM has a very important role to play there. How to handle legacy applications which do not support SAML and OpenID? I already answered this question. How banks can do transition from conventional IAM to converged IAM cost effectively. So a true converged IAM technology allows you to continue with your existing portions of the technology. It does not discard and throw away. That's another difference between a true converged IAM and a false converged IAM. Certainly, technologies like cross identity do have the ability to continue to enable you to continue to use what you have invested in and add only the incremental. Over a period of time, you can go for full convergence, but you don't have to throw anything away.
Just to add on the identity fabric and zero trust.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. So basically, IAM becomes the fundamental of your entire strategy of zero trust. Zero trust basically says, don't trust, always verify. Whom are you verifying? What are you verifying? And what is the context in which you are verifying this? You are verifying the identity and the corresponding access. So IAM becomes the base fundamental upon which you will actually build your zero trust strategy.
Very true. Would you like to also comment on the identity fabric?
Yes, please. And I'm really sorry to all attendees. There was some sound problem. I couldn't speak earlier. So consider the scenario where in today's world, all your stakeholders, whether it is your employees, whether your peers, your vendors, partners, consumers, they expect a uniform way of accessing things, way of accessing digital services. They are used to a particular way of accessing services in their own world. For example, on Android or iOS. Why should they experience something different when they access their bank? So that consistent level and experience that a consumer or a partner or a vendor expects can only come if you have a uniform way of providing authentication and authorization. How do you do this when you have all kinds of applications in the background? You have legacy applications, you have modern SaaS applications. Providing a uniform experience across your entire ecosystem is something that Identity Fabric can help you with. And we as a vendor, obviously, are more than happy to talk to you on this one.
Thank you. We can take a few more questions. You could also share some of your thoughts. Till any other question comes in, I would like to. Okay, sorry, there's one more question. IAM be able to consider such diversity under its purview. Can we just go back because the question was a little longer than that?
Vinod, I'll take this question.
Yes, please.
So, when we say converged IAM, we are basically saying the capability to authenticate user, the capability to authorize a user, or the capability to manage a privileged user. All these capabilities are available in one solution. That doesn't mean that we cannot speak to a cloud application, a cloud repository, or your on-premise repository. In fact, we just make it easy for you to get the whole thing in one single platform. That way, you can define policies for each persona, each user type, irrespective of where they reside.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the participants?
Mr. Rao, what I would suggest is that if you could give us these questions. We have number of questions that are being asked by banks to us over the last few months. We will provide you a consolidated answer. And will time be able to consider such diversity under its purview?
Yeah, that is a very good suggestion. Actually, you can compile all the questions or whatever the doubts banks are having. You send it to us along with presentation. We'll be sharing with the participants and all the member banks. And whatever is there on chat, we'll send you all the questions.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I think since there are no questions, I thank all the participants for actively participating in the webinar. I thank all the panelists. My special thanks to Vinodji. He is a IIT Kharagpur alumnus and he has shown his talent here. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Welcome.